Is on for a motive.
The suspect is in custody after 10 lives were claimed. At least 15 people were injured.
The actions definitely look deliberate.
CIA Director Mike Pompeo on course to be confirmed as Secretary of State after a last-minute vote.
This isn't about whether or not you're going to see eye to eye with President Trump's nominee on policy. This is about making sure that the nominee is fit to serve.
The suspected Waffle House killer is under arrest. Police finding 29-year-old Travis Reinking in a wooded area near the restaurant.
Candace Owens broke the internet, getting star support from Kanye West. Now both of them are facing backlash from the left.
He simply said 7 words: "I like the way Candace Owens thinks," and this became a front news story.
Tonight, the president will host his first state dinner with French President Emmanuel Macron.
I predict that he'll get the North Korean situation exactly where he wants it, and then he'll surprise the world and figure out a way to cut a deal with the Iranians.
Ainsley's father and daughter are going to be live on the program.
Yes, because the book comes out today. It's called The Light Within Me.
Personal.
I'm so vulnerable in this book, so it's a little nerve-wracking.
We stayed up all night long, made our drinks too strong, feeling 10 feet tall, rope swinging to the water in the middle of the night.
Live from New York City as we see the skyscrapers come on in to the world's most famous curvy couch.
That's true.
It's an exciting day because anytime a book comes out, it's extremely exciting, and it's honored to do it and have it out there. But when you do it on yourself, you really feel like you're out there. And your dad's here.
My
we just saw your daughter.
Hayden's here. Lots of pictures about our family and my parents and their influence. And it's called The Light Within Me. I talk about the death of my grandmother in it and losing a child through miscarriage and just ups and downs in my life, but getting here to the most famous curvy couch. And just the ride, it's been extraordinary, and I'm so grateful to God. So that's what The Light Within Me is. My faith is very important to me, as y'all know.
Yeah.
And so this is HarperCollins approached me about writing a book about my faith, and you can't say no to that because it's.
I just want to say,
asking you to write a book.
There's one whole chapter against me, and the whole chapter 9 is everything I do wrong, and I was a little offended.
Actually, one on everything Steve does right, and 2 chapters on everything you do wrong.
I was really trying.
Right. But there is forgiveness.
Right, that's good because I had to voice that part of the book on tape, so it's really hard for me to do.
There are actually parts of the behind the scenes here at Fox and Friends that you've never heard before that are in the book. It is a great moving book. It's a memoir, a spiritual memoir, available everywhere starting today.
Thank you so much. Thanks for y'all's support. Y'all are awesome. I'm so blessed.
All right, Ainsley's dad in about a half an hour.
Right. And meanwhile, 2 minutes after the time. By the way, if we want to find you on tour, where do we go?
Oh, okay. So. We're going to bring it up. We're going to bring it up. This is a more important story, but thank you, Brian, for doing that. We're going to tell you straight ahead.
All right. Since my name's on this, I'll read it straight to this Fox News alert. You're looking at footage now of the search for a motive after a man intentionally speeds into a crowd in Toronto on that very block, killing 10.
Investigators have not ruled out terrorism in this case.
So what is the theory? Let's go to Molly Line. She's live in Toronto with the very latest on this Tuesday morning. Molly?
Good morning. We're just off of Yonge Street. This is where this massacre unfolded and actually went on for many city blocks, and they expect to be here for several days, pouring over the scene. As you mentioned, police have yet to release a motive in this attack, but they have arrested a driver. They believe he is the man that used a white van to mow down a multitude of pedestrians, traveling more than a mile before being taken into custody. That suspect has been ID'd as Alec Manassian, 25 years old, from a Toronto suburb of Richmond Hill. 10 lives were claimed. At least 15 people were injured. The brutal force of this large van leaving some dead here at the scene, others fighting for their lives.
He just went on the sidewalk. He just started hitting everybody, man. The bus stop, everything got shattered because a lot of people got hurt. I seen a scene I've never seen in my life.
The van with extensive front-end damage and bearing the logo for Ryder Truck Rentals finally stopped, and video captured at the scene showed the driver being taken into custody. America's leaders have expressed solidarity. Vice President Mike Pence tweeting in part, "The American people stand shoulder to shoulder with our neighbors in Canada." Manassian is expected to appear this morning in court at 10 a.m. That's when we expect to hear what charges he'll be facing. Back in New York, counterterrorism officers are out. They're active there in the city, but at this point it is believed to be an abundance of caution. Back to you.
All right, Molly, thanks. We'll try to find out the motive to unwind how to stop the next attack. Meanwhile, 4 minutes after the top of the hour, it's a big week for the president. He's going to close it out with Angela Merkel, but he begins it with one of his best friends on the international scene, and that's Emmanuel Macron, fresh off his interview with Chris Wallace of France. After going to Mount Vernon yesterday, of course, the history there with the French coming in, helping us win the Revolutionary War, with Lafayette stopping at Mount Vernon first. It means a lot to the French people, and so does Washington. They'll be at a state dinner tonight, but already Macron made it clear that I got the message, Mr. President, about increasing our defense spending. They increased their defense spending 35% in order to get the 2% threshold, which is mandated by NATO.
Right, exactly. I mean, they have not been, carrying their weight for many, many years, and the president has made it very clear the countries that do and do not carry the freight. And so now that's good that they would do that. As we look at these images last night from Mount Vernon, when you look at the live shot of the White House right now, you can tell they're actually already getting ready for the state dinner, because even there you can see right there. Notice how down at the bottom in the front of that portico, the front porch, that is one of those shields, so that the Macrons, even though they are just staying across the street at Blair House, they can just drive through the Northwest Gate, around the drive, and then they'll be able to go in without anybody seeing them from the
all
street.
For security purposes, because there's a gate in front of the White House, if you've never been there, where you can see through it, and you can see that front porch area. So some of the things on the agenda: North Korea, they're obviously going to be talking about that. They're going to be talking about Syria. I know Macron has told our president, don't pull out of Syria. They're going to be talking, as Brian mentioned, trade and the Iran nuclear deal. So Macron says that stay in the deal. Fix the deal. Pompeo agrees with that. Our president knows that the deadline is May 12th. And so Iran is saying, if you do pull out America, then I will continue making nuclear weapons. They're also going to be talking about climate change. They disagree on that. However, they are, as Brian also said, they are very close friends. So you can disagree. It's okay to have different opinions. You don't have to hate each other.
Well, that's called negotiation.
Right, but Macron's got to leave with something. He's already given something. My hope is, whether it's a way back to the Paris climate change, I think that's a long haul. But in terms of the Iranian deal, he knows what he wants in it, does the president. Maybe Macron understands how bad the deal is and will use this as an opportunity to make it better. But of course, Iran has a say in that. And Iran feels as though we've already told banks internationally not to bank with them, even though the sanctions have been released. Right. So they're mad at us as much as we're mad at them.
Well, listen, Macron would not have come to the United States without knowing ahead of time. He's going to go ahead and wave. Watch, Macron's going to give a thumbs up after the president does. Macron would not have come to the United States if he did not know that he was going to wind up with something. It's all part of the negotiation, and that is what Anthony Scaramucci told us on the couch 41 minutes ago.
I predict that he'll get the North Korean situation exactly where he wants it. They will denuclearize, and then he'll surprise the world and figure out a way to cut a deal with the Iranians. And so this is the power of his presidency and his personality. And I think he's surprising these European leaders. He can operate in a world of that intellectual elitism, but he also understands the common decency of the American people and the blue-collar people in America. And so that hybrid approach he's taking to the Europeans, I think they're very surprised by him.
So there's going to be a big state dinner tonight and talks today. By this time tomorrow, we should know what was accomplished.
To learn more about the state dinners, you need to read Laura Bush's book. It is beautiful. They put so much time and energy into these dinners, from the colors to the flowers, making it native of their country. It's amazing.
Word is, Melania is a one-woman machine. She has got every detail down. In fact, her whole staff says, okay, I don't even know what I should do, because she's got everything planned.
Look how she dresses. I'm sure everything there tonight is going to be beautiful.
Absolutely. The East Wing is busy with that. Meanwhile, over at the Department of Homeland Security, the secretary there, Nielsen, has issued warnings to the caravan of migrants. You know what? If you come into this United States illegally, you will be arrested and prosecuted. And the Attorney General put out a statement yesterday after the president tweeted about it.
Right, and hopefully they have Sirius, because she said it on satellite radio, and on the caravan up, if they had the radio on, they would have heard it. They said, I have directed for U.S. attorneys at the border to take whatever immediate action to ensure that we have sufficient prosecutors available. I've also directed that we commit any necessary immigration judges to adjudicate any cases that may arise from this caravan. This is, listen, we can handle 50 to 100 people. That's not the point. It's sending a message. We know your life is not the way you want it to be, but your answer is not sneaking in here illegally.
Yeah, the president tweeted and said, "You're not coming in. This is why we need a wall." Don't think they have Sirius radio on top of that train.
I'm not sure.
I mean, if
Unless they
10
open a
people
window.
come in illegally and it's widely publicized, then you're going to wind up with a problem like that. The Secretary of Homeland Security said this last night.
A sovereign nation that cannot get worse, I assume, is what she means, choosing. Is this written right?
Well, it's not
really.
right in the prompter.
Yeah,
that
yeah.
cannot or worse chooses not to defend its borders will soon cease to be a sovereign nation. The Trump administration is committed to enforcing our immigration laws, whether persons are part of this caravan or not.
Right. We had so many consonants in the prompter. I was just hoping for one vowel.
It's live TV. It's
Right.
okay. They work hard back there.
Right. It's a lot of N's, a lot of N's and a lot of T's.
He ran over to the screen to see what
I
it
actually
said.
read it off the TV, just like the folks at home.
I had it memorized.
Well, then why didn't you help?
I should have. I should have. In
Brian,
retrospect, I
if
should have.
you memorized it, let's hear it again.
Right. You know, but the other thing I memorized, toss to Jillian Mealy. There you go. Jillian.
Excellent toss.
Right. Thank you
Best
very
ever.
much. I memorized it.
Good morning, guys.
Morning.
Let's get you caught up on some stories that we're following. Starting here today, the 2 Florida deputies murdered in an ambush attack will be laid to rest. A funeral for 30-year-old Sergeant Noel Ramirez and 25-year-old Deputy Taylor Lindsay is this morning. The deputies shot and killed at a Chinese restaurant in Trenton, Florida, when a gunman opened fire through a glass window. He then took his own life. Sergeant Ramirez leaves behind a wife and 2 kids. Deputy Lindsay was a 3-year veteran of the force. Former President George H.W. Bush hospitalized in intensive care just days after wife Barbara's funeral. The 41st Commander-in-Chief was said to be brokenhearted over her death. A spokesman says he has a blood infection but is responding well to treatment, adding, quote, "The 41st President wants to go to Maine this summer. He's the most goal-oriented person on the planet, and I would not bet against him." Just come to your screen and look at this. A group of teens stopped their basketball game and take a knee. Ainsley says she loves this story. And this is because of a passing funeral procession in Louisiana. A family member posting the photo online saying how much it meant to see the boys honoring their loved one. The boys did not know the person who died, but say their coach taught them the importance of showing respect. This photo is now going viral. I saw that yesterday, and it just, you see that photo, and it just kind of gives you chills.
What respectful young men to do that. It looked like they may be playing basketball because it's on a basketball
stops
court.
their game.
They stopped.
Anytime
So
you see a
nice.
funeral procession, you should always stop.
Yeah, that's just precious.
It was
we
nice.
need more of that in this world.
Yes, we
I
do.
love that.
All right, Jillian, thank you very much. Meanwhile, Democrats lining up to vote against Mike Pompeo's nomination as Secretary of State. Are they messing with national security or just trying to score political points? We're going to talk about that.
Plus, one high school is rebelling against its own rebel mascot, trying to ban it to be more inclusive.
And look who's in the green room. It is my father and my daughter Hayden and her doll babies, Elsa and Anna. It's a special day for us because we're celebrating. We'll tell you why. Hi, Hayden. She has lipstick on. The makeup artist. She got
You need it. It's television.
Oh, sweet.
Time won't change you. Hope you never stop now.
So it looks like Mike Pompeo is going to be the next Secretary of State for this country. The official vote's going to come later this week as he gets out of committee. So what's it going to mean for the country? We know the State Department gets a seat at the table, but where Rex Tillerson just didn't have the pull with the president. But what does it mean for Pompeo's philosophy, especially after his months at the CIA? Joining us now is Ryan Morrow, national security analyst, and he's also with the professor of counterterrorism at Liberty University. Ryan, in particular, what do you think we're going to see as Secretary of State that we didn't see as a congressman and as CIA director?
Well, he's basically going to be having a forward-leaning foreign policy with an ideological focus, which we haven't really had before since 9/11. What that means is standing up for human rights and Muslim reformers in the Muslim world. I would say that this is very positive, arguably even progressive, for the sake of Muslims in the Middle East that want to bring about peace and also bring about national security for the entire world.
You know, the fear is he's going to be be too aggressive at state, where diplomacy is really paramount. But do you think he's going to segue a little and change his approach because he is the chief diplomat?
Well, of course, there's going to be that diplomatic element of how you phrase certain things, but there's also a diplomatic element to waging the ideological war. So if in Turkey or in Iran there are protesters that are being locked up, you can expect to see the State Department leaning in and saying, we stand behind those guys. How can we help them? Very important. And he's not a warmonger like people are making it sound.
No offense to Rex Tillerson. It's that he could have had the best idea or the worst idea. He just wasn't on the same page as the president.
He's not,
From briefing the president on a regular basis and seeing what went wrong with Tillerson, how do you think Pompeo is going to approach his job?
Well, I think some of the biggest contrasts you're going to see come in regards to Turkey and Qatar and their support of the radical Islamic movement around the world. Some of the biggest moves that you'll see happen probably under Pompeo would be the designation of the Muslim Brotherhood as a foreign terrorist organization, because right now they can legally operate in the United States. So expect a lot of blowback over that, as well as this other group, Jamaat al-Fuqra, which has leadership in Pakistan that I've talked about on this program a lot. They're the group that has some isolated communes throughout the United States. I expect Pompeo to take action against that also.
Right, and Democrats aren't necessarily against anything you said in particular. Right. They were just against anything Trump-like. Is that what you got from the vote? And Menendez's ridiculous 650 questions he needed answers?
Yeah, if you took these policies in isolation, you could see most Democrats, if it didn't have a Republican identity attached to it, saying, that's a great idea, that's our idea, that supports progressive values as well as national security. But instead you get showboating. You basically get Cory Booker there, who needs a new acting coach because it was obvious that he went in there trying to score a YouTube moment and making it sound like Pompeo is an Islamophobe, going after him for his associations, while at the same time, Cory Booker does things like embrace a radical imam from New Jersey and then defends him when he gets called out on it. Right. So Booker shouldn't be out there accusing people of having improper associations when he does things like
20
that.
seconds. Gina Haspel as deputy. The CIA wants her to get this job. They have put it out. They want to get her to get this job. What's it going to be like for the first female nominee?
I think it's going to be very rough because of the accusations in regards to allegedly covering up enhanced interrogation or torture, whatever you want to call it. I expect a lot of leaks. That's a big problem, and there's going to be a faction within the CIA that does not like what she stands for.
Can you imagine somebody ultimately qualified to run the department at the first female, and they push back? She did everything she was supposed to do to keep America safe. She shouldn't have to defend that. Thank you very much,
Thank
Ryan.
you.
Appreciate it. Meanwhile, coming up straight ahead, we've been telling you about Diamond and Silk's long battle with Facebook over censorship. Now, this morning, Facebook is finally taking action. We'll explain. And listen up, parents. He commanded the most highly decorated Special Operations Unit of the Iraq War. Now retired Navy SEAL Jocko Willink has a new book that'll teach your kids to become young warriors. Listen up, or he's taking attendance. He's going to find out where you live, and he's coming to your house.
Here's some quick headlines for you. Protesters flooding the streets after an Arizona Border Patrol agent is found not guilty of murder. No justice, no peace, no racist police. Lonnie Swartz shot through a border fence, killing a 16-year-old Mexican boy in 2012. He says he was protecting himself from a group of rock-throwing drug smugglers. And Border Patrol agents nabbed 56 illegal immigrants from an alleged stash house. Homeland Security and police tipped off about suspicious activity at the home in Laredo, Texas. The men and women and children from Guatemala, from Mexico, and Honduras are now in ICE custody. Steve?
Thanks, Ainsley. More on that Fox News alert out of Toronto, Canada. Investigators are desperately seeking a motive for why a driver would intentionally drive his van onto a crowded sidewalk, killing at least 10 innocent people. Our next guest has battled evil firsthand. Retired Navy SEAL Jocko Willink led the most highly decorated Special Ops Unit of the Iraq War. He joins us now live. Good morning to you, Jocko.
How you doing?
I'm doing okay, but you know, up in Canada, they're trying to figure a motive for why this guy did it. Ultimately, he got out of the van and then was telling the cops, kill me, kill me. He was evil or deranged or something, but I know you've spent much of your life going after and eliminating evil because it's something very real to you, isn't it?
Yeah, and I think that's one of the mistakes that people make is they don't think that evil exists. They think that everyone is good-hearted and has good nature, but you have to watch out because people can be evil, and this is a classic example. Who knows what his motive is, and it doesn't matter to those innocent people that were killed or their families.
Sure, and Ainsley, about an hour ago, was talking to the hero from the Waffle House just outside of Nashville, where the guy was, he was hiding behind a door when the guy started shooting. Ultimately, between magazines, he jumped up, grabbed the guy's gun, even though it was red hot, and was able to wrestle the gun away from him.
Yeah, that was outstanding, and that's standing up in the face of pure evil for sure.
It's hard to do that. You have written a great new book. It's the second book of your series. It's called Way of the Warrior Child. Mark's mission, Way of the Warrior Kid. Because there is so much evil in the world, it is important to raise what you call warrior kids. What are warrior kids for openers?
Well, warrior kids are kids that, first of all, do the right thing. They stand up, they have discipline, they study hard, they work hard. And these are all things that we would all love all of our kids to do, but a lot of times there's no influence to push them in that direction. And I saw that with my own kids growing up when I'd go out to buy books for them, and a lot of the books didn't have the values that I wanted my kids to have. So I ended up writing the first book, Way of the Warrior Kid, and that did very well and got such great feedback from kids all over the place that were now studying and reading and doing pull-ups and doing the right things, eating the right foods. And so I wrote another one. So here we are.
That's right. But when you see the expression warrior kid, do you think some parents might think, oh, that's going to teach my kid to be aggressive?
Well, actually, this book, the second book, I cover that topic in pretty good depth. So there's a new bully in the second book, but this bully is kind of a psychological bully that makes fun of other kids. And Mark, the lead character in the book, the warrior kid, he wants to fight him. And his Uncle Jake said, well, if you want to fight him, first you have to learn about him. First you have to understand why he does this. And to make a long story short, as he uncovers what the kid's background is like, the bully kid's background is like, he actually has a very tough childhood. And he has old shoes and his jeans are ripped and he doesn't get good food for school. And the warrior kid realizes that that other kid, this bully, has a real hard life. And instead of wanting to fight him, he ends up wanting to help him.
Right. So Mark is the kid in the story, and there's a former Navy SEAL who, by the name of Jake, right, Jocko,
Yeah,
the kind
Uncle
of based
Jake.
on your life.
Uncle Jake. Uncle Jake is a lot cooler than I am, I can promise you that.
Yeah. How did your life as a Navy SEAL prepare you for this kind of storytelling?
Well, I think just taking the lessons that I learned from being in the SEAL teams, learning about discipline, learning about hard work, I actually learned how to study in the Navy. You know, when I joined the Navy, I realized I had to learn all this stuff. I didn't know how to study. I wasn't a great student in high school. Then they told me I had to memorize this stuff. I had to figure out how to do it. And so these are the kind of lessons that I'm able to pass on in the Warrior Kid books.
In addition to showing how to be a warrior kid, a warrior family, ultimately it's about patriotism as well, isn't it?
Well, it certainly is about patriotism, but I would say that the main focus of the book is not just patriotism, it's individual success and driving forward. You know, another big piece of this book is Mark wants money to buy a new bike. But how do you get money when you're 11 years old? Well, his Uncle Jake tells him he has to get a job. And since it's hard for an 11-year-old to get a job, he has to create his own business. So guess what? He goes out and starts mowing lawns and earning money so that he can get his new bike and learn the value of money as well.
That's how it worked when I was a kid. That's how it worked when you were a kid. But unfortunately, there are a lot of parents who want to be their kid's best friend. And it's like, oh, you want a bike? Here's the money.
And that doesn't help the kid ultimately. You'll put a smile on their face at that moment, but they don't learn about the value of money. They don't learn about the value of hard work. And that's where I think this book will help kids out.
Well, it is the second book in your series. It's called Way of the Warrior Kid, Mark's Mission. Jocko, we thank you very much for joining us live.
Thanks for having me on.
Thank you for your service.
It was an honor to serve.
All right. 8:30 now here in New York City. Still ahead, one high school is rebelling against its own rebel mascot, trying to ban their own rebel mascot to be more inclusive. What's that about? The story straight ahead. And it's a special day for Ainsley. We are celebrating with her father, Wayne, and her daughter, Hayden. And she's got a brand new book that comes out today.
This has been decades in the making. It's finally ready for the world to see. The Light Within Me is now released. The Ainsley Earhardt story, the authorized biography to date. Am I correct?
That's exactly right, Brian. Thank you for mentioning this. It's called The Light Within Me, and last night I was out in New Jersey, and Steve lives right around the corner from Bookends, which is where I was signing some books.
By. Absolutely.
And those are the owners. They're so nice. Thank you so much for having me out there. And then we have some other pictures, I think, of, that was the table of books.
Just pick one. You had your many books available.
Yeah, and there's Steve right in the front. He introduced me last night with some of the crowd.
All right, today you'll be in Brooklyn at At
The bookmark shop.
Yeah, the bookmark shop. That'll be great.
7:30 tonight. Please come out if you live in that area. Then Friday, I'm going to be right outside of Spartanburg, South Carolina, where I was born, Boiling Springs Baptist Church. And then 5:30. That's going to be 5:30 p.m. So right after work.
Right.
And then on Saturday, Barnes and Noble in Columbia, South Carolina, at 2 p.m. And then on May 6th. In Northvale, New Jersey at 1 p.m.
She'll be back in Jersey. Meanwhile, her father, Wayne, was in New Jersey with us last night. And this morning you got...
You want some mints? Okay.
What does Hayden want to talk about?
She wants a mint.
Oh, look.
She likes eating mints.
Yeah, why wouldn't she?
Here you go. Here, baby. You want another one? What do you say? What do we say?
Yeah.
You're welcome.
You know, Wayne Ainsley's book is described as an inspirational memoir. And a lot of the inspiration for her spiritual life came from her parents.
Well, probably more so a mother than a father.
True, both of you.
Well, we went to church like most families do, and but Ainsley was always a strong Christian, and it was great to. I learned some things in the book that I didn't know about her, to be very honest with you. Well, the smoking, number one, and
tell the story.
Well, I think her mother used to smoke, and so I think the habit may have come from that, and then I think Ainsley started. I think her brother smoked. I don't think Elise ever smoked.
No one does anymore.
Yeah.
But we did. I used to smoke those little Virginia Slim Super Slims, and I had a cigarette case and the whole 9 yards. And I wasn't truthful about it when I got caught in high school.
You hid the cigarettes.
I did hide them. We were able to smoke in high school. I mean, I went to this was, 20-some years ago. So, yeah, I knew my parents would be disappointed in me. I did some things that I knew my parents would be disappointed in me, and that's what the book is about, how I need God. And that light in me is God and what God's done in my life and changed me.
Well, see, I just can't picture Ainsley giving you a hard time. Am I right?
Well, Brian, one story, one night about 12 o'clock at midnight, I get a phone call from the sheriff's department.
Okay.
And they say, we've got your daughter down here at the station.
Not true.
She hid in a closet. A party's going on, and she hides in the closet, so the policeman opens up.
It was prom night. There was a big party at this one friend's grandparents' house.
My goodness.
Grandparents weren't home, and the cops came in, and they called parents of anyone who was younger than 21, and yeah, so. I wasn't doing anything bad. I just was at a party where we weren't supposed to be.
You were a normal kid who had, normal ups and downs.
I was hiding in the closet in my prom dress by myself, and because I ran upstairs in the closet, and the police officer opened the closet, and I said, "Please don't call my parents," and of course they did.
Yeah.
But anyway, yeah.
So, Mr. Earhart, in particular, did you see this potential in her, and not only as a talented on-camera person, but as a person?
Ainsley was, first of all, I always like to talk about all my children, not just Ainsley.
Right.
We've been blessed with 3 really good children. And Ainsley was always one that spent a lot of time fantasizing in a room. She'd line up with dolls and talk to them, and they on stage and dancing and all that sort of stuff. So she, vivid imagination stuff, and always very well organized.
What is it like being at home watching her and seeing the response from the people?
Ainsley and I have talked about this. It's one of these things. We're from South Carolina, a little small state, and you wonder what in the world is she doing on national TV, and just how blessed she really is to be.
Well, and we're blessed that she's with us.
Thank you.
In your book, you write a little bit about everybody in your life, including your father, who's sitting right next to you. Would you like to read a passage?
Sure. Yes, I would. Okay, this is about my dad, and it says, "My father taught me confidence, which allowed me to follow my dreams and never be afraid of rejection." So Dad always said, don't let fear get in the way of you and your destiny and what your dreams are. Just go for it and be happy. Right, Dad?
I'm sorry, that's right.
And that's also kind of a message from your coaching days.
That's right.
Really?
Well, some of my players may not agree with that, but I always kind of had little quotes, and I guess one was the one that Walt Disney came out with. I think Walt Disney went broke, 3 times, and he always said, "I hope I'll never be afraid to fail." So, I try to encourage our children to don't be afraid of failure.
The bigger the risk, the bigger the reward.
That's right.
Yeah.
But part of the key is, I think, is because you're not going to judge them by their success. You're going to judge them by the effort they put in to try to get that success.
That's exactly right. Exactly right.
I remember flying for my interview here and seeing New York City and just sobbing, and I wrote in my journal, so that story is in the book. There's also a story about my grandmother. I knew all 4 of my grandparents, and they were all amazing. The first one who passed away was my mom's mother, my Mimi, and she was on her deathbed and was in the hospital, and my mom and her sister, my Aunt Lynn, were by our side every single second. And so I write about that, and I say, they say when someone you love is dying, you should let them know that it's okay for them to go. I wanted to do that, but at the same time, selfishly, I couldn't bear the thought of not having her in my life. I didn't want to let her go. My mother and my aunt spent every waking hour in the hospital room with her. They took turns sleeping in the chair or the cot the nurses had brought in for them. They played cards and sat by my mother until she took my grandmother, until she took her last breath. To say it was a sad moment is a huge understatement. At Mimi's funeral, the minister read this passage from the book of Proverbs, and then I write Proverbs 31, and I go on to say, I wanted my character to be like hers. I too wanted to be a Proverbs 31 woman. Charm is deceptive, and beauty is fleeting, but a woman who fears, serves, and loves the Lord will be praised. No matter what else I may accomplish in my life, that is the praise I long for above all else. My grandmother,
beautiful.
She woke up early. Food was always on the table for her groom, my grandfather. She took such good care of him. She was the best wife, best grandmother, best mother, and all four of my grandparents were amazing, and that's where they learned it. And hopefully I'll be the same for Hayden because of
And you are.
the great family I have.
Right.
Thank you.
All right, go get the book, the signings. If we want to see all the signings to see if you're coming near us, where do we go?
Go follow me on Twitter and on Facebook, and I'll be posting where I'm going to be. But tonight it's in Brooklyn. This coming Friday, Spartanburg, outside of Spartanburg, Boiling Springs. Saturday is going to be Columbia, and then coming up, I'm back out in New Jersey, and I'll be booking some more in the future too.
And if you, on your prom night, were locked in a closet in your prom dress, we'd like to hear your story as well.
Right.
I need
Men and women.
God. I'm telling you, I need God in my life.
Right.
I'm a sinner.
It's a great
Yeah,
story.
right.
Check it out. The book is called The Light Within Me. All right, 18 minutes before the top of the hour, and Jillian, you've got
Was
some
not
headlines.
locked in the closet in her prom dress.
You were good.
I never got in trouble. Okay, good morning to you guys, and that's a true story. Let's get you caught up on some of your news right now, starting with this. Facebook wants to be more transparent with users. The social media site publishing the rules that their moderators use when reviewing content. They will also launch an appeals process for people who think their posts were unfairly removed. Weeks ago, as you remember, Facebook came under fire for censoring conservative duo Diamond and Silk for being unsafe.
I've seen a lot of things on Facebook, shootings and killings and people being beat with stilettos. That seem unsafe to me. That's what.
They will testify before a congressional committee on Thursday. A high school is doing away with its highly debated mascot to be more inclusive. South Albany High School in Oregon now being instructed to change its Rebels mascot, a Confederate soldier. The school superintendent says she doesn't want it to offend students or the community. The school is currently using a flag with their initials as a logo. Students will rename the Rebel mascot by the end of the school year. Did you see this? A high school golfer gets attacked by a very angry goose. The bird going after the teen after he got too close to her egg on a course in Michigan. Blissfield High School posting the pictures, I like the sound effects there, which have now gone viral. The school tweeting, quote, "And you thought golf was boring?" The golfer was not seriously hurt. Guys, look at that picture. Is that not hilarious?
It's a little scary.
I can't imagine seeing that.
Or going through that. I feel badly for that guy.
All right, Jillian, thank you very much. Meanwhile, we are just minutes away from the President and First Lady's official welcome ceremony for the French president ahead of tonight's big state dinner. We are live at the White House next.
Plus, high schoolers escaping a raging bus fire on the side of a highway. And guess who's there? Dr. Oz, the man who plays a doctor on TV and in real life. There he is. The doctors are coming up shortly.
So wake me up when it's all over.
All right, we are back with a live look outside the White House, where President Trump will formally welcome French President Emmanuel Macron in just a few minutes as the band plays.
Yeah, how many lawns have a band on them this morning? They're holding top priority talks, though, about the fate of the Iran nuclear deal and threats from North Korea, of course, and Syria ahead of tonight's big dinner. Kevin Corke is live outside the White House. Kevin, don't feel bad you're not invited. No press is invited.
Not a single one, but for the record, guys, I've actually been to a state dinner, and it is fantastic to go. know, but you're right. I can actually hear the band right over my shoulder. Clearly, for viewers, this will be a fascinating watch here on Fox News this morning. But for the policymakers, to be quite frank, this is just a mere appetizer, guys, before the main course. Now, the main course, of course, being those conversations, high-level discussions about a myriad of issues that have, well, frankly, threatened to strain the long-standing alliance between our two countries. Now, last night, in case you missed this, the Trumps and the Macrons actually spent a little time at Mount Vernon, the historic home of our very first president, George Washington. But after the welcome this morning on the South Lawn, it is down to business, as in discussions about the Iran nuclear deal, what to do in Syria, what about North Korean nuclear program, what about trade, and yeah, maybe throw a little climate change in there for good measure. Now, White House officials are confident that despite the differences, the two leaders will definitely work together for the good of the alliance and their respective countries.
We have an incredibly good negotiator at the table for the United States, but what you do have are two leaders who have a great deal of respect for one another, who have a great friendship, certainly both have a great deal of interest in doing what is best for their country.
And that is exactly what you expect the president to do. This is Melania Trump on Twitter, posting the preparations for tonight's state dinner. By the way, the main course, a rack of spring lamb. Good eating, boys. I wish I were going to be there. Instead, I'll be watching just like you.
Well, you've been to one. Whose state dinner did you go to?
I had a chance to go to the state dinner for the president of Ghana. In fact, our colleague Dana Perino was there, and she was kind enough to invite me and put me on the list of dignitaries.
That's
such
fantastic.
as it is. It was a great time.
That's terrific. What a memory.
Yeah.
All right, Kevin Cork, North Lawn. Festivities on the South Lawn start in 12 minutes. You'll see it live right here on the channel. Meanwhile, high school students escape a raging bus fire on the side of a highway, and guess who came to the rescue? Dr. Oz. The doctor is in next.
We are awaiting French President Emmanuel Macron and his wife at the White House for President Trump's first formal state visit. We will take you there for their arrival in moments. Plus, Senate Foreign Relations Committee Chairman Bob Corker is here as Mike Pompeo's nomination to head the State Department now heads to the Senate floor. And the results of an Arizona special election could be too close to call for comfort, too close for comfort, I should say. The Republican favored to win that race, Debbie Lesko. She will be joining us live on America's Newsroom in just moments. Join Bill and me in about 5 minutes.
Meanwhile, Dr. Oz proving that he's always on call, racing to the rescue after he drove by this bus full of high school students that had burst into flames along I-95, the Jersey Turnpike, headed south.
And as you know, this is not Dr. Oz's first roadside rescue. In 2015, he was named an honorary firefighter after helping victims of a crash on that same highway.
And in 2013, he helped a woman who was hit by a taxi in New York City. He's an accident waiting to happen. Here to share his story, the host of the Dr. Oz Show, Dr. Oz himself.
I would call you a hero, not an accident.
No time to do hair and makeup before this episode of Dr. Oz's reality show.
You can tell I didn't look so rested in those images. I think it might be a bad omen, though. I was in a plane flying to a big conference in Las Vegas a month ago. Someone got sick in the back. I mean, it's ubiquitous. But I think part of it is that I do travel a fair amount, as you guys do, and so you run into stuff. But this accident, I mean, the one that happened outside my office, actually right out here, literally right out here, in front of our building, was this Sean Green, wonderful dancer from England, had just come to the U.S. for the first time ever as part of a organized trip. A cab was fighting with a biker, runs the biker off the road, and then by mistake runs off the road, crushes her legs, amputates her legs. Right. And a lot of people don't realize this, but the person who really saved her life, I mean, I was right here, I ran out, I tried to help, but the guy who really saved her was the plumber, Dave, who pulled his belt off and did what plumbers do. He put it on her leg, tourniqueted. He didn't really know what he was doing, but it made sense. And he was the one who kept her alive till I got there. So you see these stories, and they're always heroes that I'm witnessing. Because believe me, I'm not. On this bus thing, the real hero is the bus driver who managed. The tire blew out because of the intense heat. It exploded the back of the bus. All these. This is a music school. The Northwest Baltimore School. And they actually were coming from New York City where they had watched Wicked, not realizing the real fire was on the way home. And I was headed down to talk for Ben Carson because Dr. Carson has these great scholars from all over the country, academically gifted kids who help their communities. So I'm driving down. All of a sudden, I see this tire fly in front of me. Everyone's weaving around, high speed. Right. And your world slows down. And then I see the bus is bursting up in flames. These young people want to save their instruments. Of course. And I kept, the teachers managed to get these kids off the bus after the bus driver safely got it off to the side. And of course, they want to go back and get their used tuba. And I say, third-degree skin grafts in a hospital are not worth getting your clarinet out of the back of that bus.
Right.
But you know what, Dr. Oz? How many people in those cars that we're watching right there could have stopped, but didn't stop? But you're always willing to take the chance and stop.
But you're kind. But I think you guys all believe this too. Evil is not when bad people do bad things. That's going to happen. Evil is when good people watch bad people do bad things. And so we all have an obligation to stand up and be counted. On the show this year, I've been doing a lot of investigations. Food fraud being the #1 fraud we have financially in America, but also, true crime. All these cases, these Turpin kids, the 13 kids held in California, the Hart kids, the 6 kids run off the road by their 2 moms. You look at these stories, what happened? What people saw, but they couldn't get enough people activated to do something about it.
You're just determined. Your mind says, I'm getting involved if I see it.
Well, I saw these kids running with flames behind them. You get off the road, you do what you can to help.
You do indeed.
Thank you.
He's across the street waiting for us. All right, Dr. Oz, thank you very much.
God bless you.
All right, we're going to step aside the South Lawn, waiting for the president of France, as you can see right there.
Yeah, live picture in just a moment, so don't move.